Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2, and today I'm going to be showing you guys a really good build for both solo and group play, which offers you a ton of sustainability and overall survivability, and also crazy damage potential in certain situations. My weapon guide video is taking a little bit longer than anticipated because I ended up spending a really long time today doing math and just staring at spreadsheets, and I got kind of burnt out. So I'll actually be uploading that video tomorrow. Sorry I couldn't get it out today, but anyways, hopefully this video can hold you over until then. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy, and if you do, please make sure to drop a like, as that helps me out a ton. But anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so I just quickly want to say that I am playing on my friend's account right now. That's because he has a way better setup version of this than I was able to. I just didn't save a lot of the right gear for it. So yeah, that's why it might seem like I'm on another person's account, because I am. First off, I'm going to be playing sharpshooter like always, even though I'm not getting assault rifle damage like I would in the, I believe, survivalist tree. Yeah. I'm still getting 25% headshot damage, 30% reload speed. Both of these are absolutely insane. And weapon stability, recoil, stuff like that is pretty helpful too. This is only pertains to rifle damage. But yeah, let's talk about the build. You may have seen this somewhere else, or maybe like a PvP rendition of this. This is a PvE version. You could definitely make it a PvP version if you just swapped out a few things. But let's talk about the core components of the build. The first core component being clutch. Critical hits restore 15% health and repair 2% armor, basically meaning that if you hit a lot of crits, you're going to be healing yourself. This is going to result in you wanting to get 60% crit chance, and also you're going to want a gun that shoots relatively fast or has pretty high RPM to, more shots per second, meaning more healing per second. What pairs well with clutch is safeguard. Killing a target grants 150% bonus to repairing and healing effects. This does affect clutch, so I believe you heal for 7% per hit, which is pretty crazy once you get the build set up properly. I do want to say this is far from perfect, and I am going to go over how it could be way better, etc. But this is just how we have it set up right now. It's pretty hard to get it very well set up, also because you end up using a lot of pieces that you wouldn't think you would end up using. So until you know that you want to use the build, then you realize, oh shit, I should have saved more stuff. But anyways, you want clutch, safeguard. These pair very well together, and what else pairs very well with it is going to be strained and berserk. Berserk is going to give you 10% weapon damage for every 10% of your max armor depleted. So when you're really low HP, you're going to get a shitload of weapon damage. If you have no armor, obviously that's going to be 100% weapon damage, which is a lot of damage. And then with the build, I'm running a police M4 right now. That's just because this is the best gun that my friend has. He doesn't have a P416, which is actually the best AR in the game. Like I said, the weapon guide video will be out tomorrow, and in that video I'll explain why that is the best gun. But this is good because it has really high RPM. It just is far from being a really good gun, or from being the best gun. The AKM is pretty good, but only if you have the 7.62 magazine slot. But it is low RPM. But if you have the Chatterbox exotic, that actually gives you a shitload of what's it called? Rate of fire. It gives you 20% rate of fire every time you kill somebody and reload. So you could run pretty much any gun with that and have enough RPM to heal yourself consistently. But regardless, you want to have Allegro on this just for the extra rate of fire. But strained, critical hit damage is gained for every 5% of your armor that is depleted. So when you have all of your armor depleted, you have 200% crit damage, which is crazy because you're already stacking max crit chance to benefit from strained as much as possible. So you pair all these together, and when you're at really low health, you end up getting a ton of damage. But also, most importantly, you get survivability, which is why it's a good solo build. Getting clutch and safeguard. Safeguard also helps towards other heals too. So personally, with this build, I've been running chem launcher, and I've been running drone, healer drone. The fixer drone is pretty good because you can, the way that you want to play this build is you want to play pretty aggressive but not super aggressive, but the drone will heal you while you're being shooting at people. It's pretty nice because just free healing, I guess, not really doing much. I don't really think much else is worth for heals, but you could also use the hive revive. That's pretty good just as like a fail safe. But if you're playing with a team or something, the drone is pretty nice. And the chem launcher also heals you a ton when you have safeguard procced. But anyways, let's get into the individual roles on everything now that we've covered the basics of the build, because executing this build is very difficult because the most important thing here is getting to max crit chance while only having 5 attributes, because you can only get safeguard and you can only get strained when you have 5 or less red attributes. I wish this was 7. That would make it a million times easier to make this build, and I could make a much better version of the build. But those are the main things, and I'll go over how to best maximize your, slots. Like I said, this build is far from perfect, but whatever. So weapon, like I said, you'd probably prefer a P416, maybe an AKM if you have the 7.62 magazine slot, because on an AKM, even though the RPM is kind of low, you can end up getting a 20% crit damage muzzle on that, which is pretty good, as that pairs pretty well with the build since you're stacking so much crit chance already. As a secondary, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, because you're going to be mainly using your AR. That's pretty much the only thing that matters. I would definitely try to get a chatterbox if you can, because that is absolutely insane. You get 20% rate of fire pretty much all the time. I don't want to say all the time, but more than half the time you get an extra 20% rate of fire, which means you can kill people way faster, heal way faster, etc, etc. If you can't get a chatterbox, I would recommend farming some of the challenging missions and getting the other exotic Merciless. That gives you I believe it's like 20% explosive damage. You have a 5% chance to get an extra 20% explosive damage on your bullet. It's just free extra damage since you're only using one type of gun. You might as well just get it because it's free damage anyways. It's a holster talent. My friend doesn't have either of them, unfortunately. Getting into the weapon rolls, you want strained as the top one. Second one, you're always going to want Allegro. Another one that's pretty good is the extended mag one. That's pretty much where the benefits end for the secondary talents. There aren't very many other ones that are decent, maybe accurate or something, but you, more than anything else, you want rate of fire. For the holster talent, doesn't really matter. These for the most part aren't that helpful, so I would just focus on the 2 top talents. Those are definitely most important. In terms of modding it, the way that we have it set up right now is with a crit chance scope. I'm not sure if this is the best thing to do. The reason that we have this is just because the way that my friend has his build set up, he wasn't able to get crit chance cap, which would be 60% without running this. Ideally, you would probably want to run this reflex sight for the crit hit damage, because this ends up making your damage a little bit lower, losing headshot damage, but in the end it's worth it, because with this build you're going to need to have that crit cap, and it's really hard to reach it without with only using 5 slots or whatever. For the underbarrel, this is absolutely a must, pretty much regardless of what build you're running. 10% crit chance and only lose stability. You can't even notice the stability difference, so it's always worth it. Mag slot, this is kind of obvious. You always want the 30 rounds. The rate of fire doesn't make that big of a difference. The rounds is absolutely insane. The muzzle, damage to elites minus stability. You don't notice this ability. The damage to elites is just free damage pretty much. If you're running a 7.62 gun like an AKM, you can get 20% crit damage, and I think it's like minus 10% stability, or maybe optimal range, something like that. But that's what you want for the mods. Now let's get into the fun part, because this is what makes the build incredibly difficult to make, and you're gonna see some weird rolls. You're gonna be like, why are you running that? And trust me, I'll explain why. It's just because we had to maintain 5 red, just because we had to. But I will explain what the best rolls are. So for your mask can't get high rolls on the red. The only high roll that it could get is damage to elites. So maybe you could get like a 34% damage to elites roll, and that could be worth it. But otherwise, I would probably try to stray away from a red roll here. Ideally, you would want like 2 blues, being just armor. Just stack up a whole bunch of armor so that you can face tank more consistently. And you're going to be wanting to go for a damage roll on your mask. So damage to elites is nice. More damage the better, right? Like I said, you could go to damage to elites as a red roll, but you're trying to keep this under 5, so you want to make sure that the red rolls that you get count. Oh, I should probably mention the gear sets that we're running. Sorry about that. The gear sets that we are running with this build is going to be 3 DNH, 1 Fenris, or I'll go over it. The DNH is for the accuracy, crit hit damage, but most importantly the crit hit chance. The Fenris chest piece is for the assault rifle damage, and the Wyvern 1 piece is for the 7% crit hit damage. And then these gloves are random. You can get other gloves with a better 1 piece. I believe, yeah, Badger has damage to elites, which is really good. But we're just running this because, like I said, this build is an absolute pain in the ass to make, because it's hard to find rolls that are good the way that you want them to be rolled as well. So for the chest piece, You're always going to want a Fenris chest because this is like the only good spot to get Fenris in, because you can't get the other gear pieces in as Fenris. You're going to want bonus armor, crit chance, and weapon damage. You could swap out the weapon damage for headshot damage, but this is definitely the way that you're going to want to set it up, because the chest piece is going to have a lot of, it's going to have a higher roll than other pieces do. You could, instead of having the weapon damage here, have a red roll somewhere else, maybe on like a backpack or a holster. A backpack can actually get really high weapon damage, so maybe that could be worth it. You can also get pretty high crit damage here, around 30%, so if you get that, that would actually be worth it. But you just want to have, you definitely want to have armor on your chest piece, because you can get a high roll. You could get around like 12k is what it is. For the talents, you need Berserk. 100% need Berserk. Hard hitting, it's kind of hard to get 2 talents, but hard hitting is really good. That's definitely what you want for more damage. But if you can't, for whatever reason, get hard hitting, you'd probably end up getting another defensive mod slot. And then with this build, we don't want to have any red mods, because those are going to net us less damage than having a red roll on our gear. So in a perfect world, we would want all defensive mods that give armor. Some defensive mods only give you health, which is kind of unfortunate. We have armor on kill though here, which is really nice. Every time we kill somebody, we just get a little bit of armor. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. You could probably go for like bleed resistance or burn resistance, but it kind of doesn't really matter. You really won't notice. It doesn't make that big of a difference. I would just try to stack as much armor if possible. So for the holster, you definitely want to get crit chance on your holster, pretty much no matter what, because you can get a really high roll of crit chance on here, and you pretty much need that to reach crit cap. For the talent here, we have Precise, which is 15% headshot damage. If you're having trouble reaching crit cap, you can use Surgical and get crit hit chance here, and then there might be a better way to set this up with us using Surgical on the holster, getting a little bit of crit chance somewhere else, and then running the, what's it called, the weapon slot, the scope that has crit damage and accuracy, so that I'm not losing out on headshot damage. You could do that, but right now, unfortunately, we're not able to set that up, so this is kind of just how we have it. But Precise is really good. For the mod slot, we have Utility. If you're running Utility, I mean, I don't know, the skill power kind of doesn't really do anything. I just have increased bleed duration and increased kill XP. I don't even know what the bleed duration actually does. I just did kill XP to get more caches. It really doesn't make much of a difference at all. I guess you could use like Chem Launcher skill power or something if you wanted. You won't notice the difference. For the backpack, this is a tough one. You're going to want crit chance on your backpack, because if you don't, it's really hard to reach crit cap, because crit chance, the highest crit chance rolls you can get are going to be on your chest. I think you can get 10% on your chest, about 15% max on your holster. On your backpack, I believe the highest I've seen is 14. We can check here. On my account, I think I've seen a pretty high roll. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking about crit damage, but it's still a pretty decent crit chance roll, and you're going to need that in order to reach crit cap. Knee pads can get around like 7.5%, I think is the highest I've seen knee pads. I think backpacks can go higher though. Ideally, you'd probably want to get crit hit chance and weapon damage here, and miss out on a red slot somewhere else, because you can get weapon damage here, and that's a ton of extra damage. But, excuse me. But for the talents, you definitely want Safeguard. Pretty much can't run this build without Safeguard, because you won't notice the healing. And then we got hard hitting for the extra damage to elites, of course. There isn't really any other damage talent that I'm aware of. Same philosophy with the utility mod slot. Didn't really know what the fuck to put here, so we just got headshot damage. For the gloves, you could get a red roll here, and you could probably get assault rifle damage as 10% damage, which is really good. I would probably value that over the 30% damage to elites, but in all honesty, you can't really be nitpicky. It's hard to make a perfect build with this, so kind of just roll with whatever you have. Ideally, we'd probably want 2 blue rolls here, both being armor, or you can't get both armor, but 1 armor, 1 health, or maybe the utility could be, I don't know, skill reduction cooldown or something like that, or maybe just instead get a defensive roll here and then a defensive slot. For the talent, you need clutch. Can't run this build without clutch, so just make sure you have that. For another set, I mean, the health is nice, I guess, but ideally you'd probably want this. This is the only other thing I know that gives you like actual damage. Agent requesting backup, dude. Oh shit. Maybe accuracy. I don't know. It doesn't really matter at this rate. We just put this on because this was the only thing that we could, have clutch on without any red rolls. It's really hard to find gloves that aren't rolled into, damage stats. For For the knee pads, you can get crit hit chance here and maybe miss out on the crit chance on your backpack. We got hard hitting, and I know you're probably like, wait, didn't you tell me that you probably don't want red on your mods? Well, that's because, like I said, this isn't ideal, and I figured that, you know, the way that it was set up before was wearing this mask with the damage to elites, and I was just like, well, I might as well just put this mask on and roll hard hitting, lose 1% damage to elites, and I end up gaining, you know, 0.5% weapon damage, 3% headshot damage. It's far from perfect, right? Ideally, I'd probably maybe get, you know, another roll on another piece, maybe some weapon damage here, but I tried everything. This is the best I could get done. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd rather have this roll armor, by the way. I don't really care about cooldown reduction. But yeah, let's go into the stat sheet just to show you. So we got 1, 2, 3 damage to elites. We got precise, clutch, of course, berserk, of course, safeguard, of course, weapon talents, yada yada. So we got 57% crit chance. It's not that big of a deal missing 3%. As long as you're at like 55%, you're in a really good spot. Try to just prioritize that. Got 42% crit damage. Pretty low crit damage here, but that's not really what matters. You get a lot of crit damage when you got strained procced, so that's fine. You could get some crit damage on pieces here and there, but I don't think it's worth it because, you know, you need the crit chance, and then getting weapon damage at that point probably just better. 88% headshot damage. This would be around 100 something. Plus we'd have like 50% crit damage if we could change out the scope. So that would be really good. Unfortunately, we just can't do that. And then we got, you know, additional 10% AR damage from the Fenris chest. So we can take a look at our armor, I guess. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, that's pretty much the build. One thing I should mention is like a tip. The AR, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. My bad, but I guess, you know, props to you guys who stayed late. You get the sick tips. The critical strike range is 10 to 45 meters, meaning that if you are within 10 meters of an enemy, you will not be able to get any critical hits on it. I think I can show you this in the shooting range. I'm not sure if it actually shows up in the shooting range. Sorry that this video is long. I try to just give you guys all the info. Here we go here. So that's more than 10 meters. Yeah, I guess I can't really show you unless maybe this guy will pop up right here. Pop up, dude. Alright, I can't show you, whatever. You know what I mean. You can't be within 10 meters because you won't get any crits, and this whole build is entirely reliant on crits, right? But yeah, I hope this helped. Hope you guys enjoy the build. And if you did, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe for videos similar to this one. I'll see you guys later. Peace.